Welcome to your nightmare. How's it going? Welcome back to another great video with the majestic host, the Savior. Yes, that's right. You are in the right place. Become a goddamn intellectual. Don't think, hey, I'm young, I'm dumb, and I'm full of cum, okay? I'm just gonna be an idiot. No. Join this fantastic community, become enlightened today, become an intellectual, become a wise boy, and subscribe. It takes 2 seconds for you guys, but it means absolutely everything to me. It takes 2 seconds, literally, and I promise you, I will not disappoint you. I work so hard on my content to give you the best possible videos I possibly can create. And if you like gaming content, day one reviews and early coverage, retrospective content on games, or philosophical content to make yourself wiser, become a wise boy and subscribe. And yeah, I will not let you down. I love this community. I love what we're doing here. Please sound off in the comments. I want to hear your thoughts about this game. And this game is perfection, okay? Because finally we have a game that doesn't treat us like a bunch of dum-dums, okay? It doesn't treat us like a bunch of babies. Modern day gaming for way too long now has been dumbed down. Modern day gaming for a very long time now has had a very weird stance when it comes to player agency, because it doesn't really give us player agency anymore with most AAA releases. It usually holds our hands, and it basically treats gamers like a bunch of mouth-drooling idiots who, just want to blow shit up. And fair enough, most of the time we do just want to blow shit up in a goddamn video game. It's what Nakey Jakey calls the goopy goblin.
Like mindless quick time event button prompts, or mindless fake climbing, or stupid, now you can't run and you're forced to slowly walk because we want to show you how pretty our game is for the billionth time. And I'm just like, yeah, fucking sure, I don't care. Just let me use the grappling hook again, please.
And it just seems like most games are trying to be movies now. They are trying this cinematic storytelling, and they feel more and more less like games and more like interactive movies. Press X 5 times in a row and you will not get shafted up the arse, I promise you. Also, buy our microtransactions. So I'm very tired of that type of game, and that's why I'm so excited to be talking about Alan Wake 2. So this is my Alan Wake 2 review, my Alan Wake 2 game review. And you might think, hey, this is kind of a weird game to bring that point up, because this is a cinematic AAA release, okay? And I understand that. It's not so much the gameplay that I find so refreshing in Alan Wake 2. That is actually something that I will have a slight critique on, but the fact that this actually treats you like an adult, that this is actually a mature game for a mature audience, and it actually requires you to use your brain a little bit, that's something that really goes a long way for me. And I think a lot of gamers will find this very refreshing and very terrifying at the same time. So I do hope you enjoy this review of Alan Wake 2, and let's just dive into it. I'm going to give you my positives and negatives. That's how I like to do all of my reviews. That's how I structure them. I don't give you a BS score like the big studio shills like IGN, because it tells you nothing. You have to decide if it's worth your time or not. So do enjoy this Alan Wake 2 review, and I'm sure that the other Alan Wake 2 reviews are going to be super positive, but they're going to have some caveats because this doesn't hold your hand, and most game journalists just, they don't know how to play games. So Alan Wake 2 is a very interesting game because this is very heavily focused on cinematic storytelling. The gameplay is second, and I'll talk about that more in a second. And I usually don't like that type of experience unless if it's super well crafted, like The Last of Us Part 1, for example, not the second one. But what I find so refreshing about Alan Wake 2 is the fact that the narrative is actually multi-layered and complicated, and that basically the player does have agency over some of its outcomes, and it will not be the same for absolutely everyone. And basically, it's just nice to play a game that, defies your expectations. You never know what's around every corner. You never know what's going to come at you. You never know what to expect. And to me, that is what makes a good survival horror game. And I would say that this is definitely more survival horror instead of straight horror. It basically relies more on tension, and, it's not exactly scary at times it's just very unnerving and disturbing, and for me that's more my type of horror anyway. It's horror at its smartest, not horror at its scariest, and I think that's a big distinction that most people need to understand before playing Alan Wake 2. You might have heard other YouTubers, okay, say, "This is such a Remedy game, guys. This is totally Remedy." Well, what does that actually mean? Of course, the underdog, myself, being under 10k, I'm not gonna say shit like that, okay? I'm going to give you some fresh takes. Let's just be a complete hypocrite and just say, yes, this is a Remedy game. And you know, I think that's a bit of a cop-out because it's very easy to say, this game is just like the other games that the developers made. Well, no shit, Sherlock, okay? Of course it's going to be like similar with other games that they made, but I think what people are trying to say when they say, you know, this is a Remedy game, what they mean is that if you are a big fan of Remedy, okay, you're going to enjoy this a lot more because actually if you dive into their games, they've actually got a very deep layered history to them, and a lot of their games are actually perhaps interconnected, and they do have a certain way of painting a game and its experience through environmental storytelling, through this kind of art style of blending real life with the game, stuff like that, which makes Remedy, okay? It's the abstract artistry of Remedy games, but I don't think that really says a lot, because as a game you need to know actually how this functions and what the gameplay actually is. So strip all of that, you know, artsy bullshit away, okay? Yes, this is a philosophical game. Yes, it does deal with, you know, the psyche and reality, the human perception. As we all know, we only see a very tiny sliver of perception as human beings, so it deals with what is reality and how reality can change right in front of our eyes without us knowing it, what it means to be living in a world as conscious creatures that we create our own reality through our own opinions and experiences. So it does deal with some interesting themes, but saying it's a Remedy game doesn't really tell you what the gameplay is. So let's strip it back and let's look at it as what it is. This is a very simplistic third-person shooter, and that's what I would say is very disappointing. You know, this is very next-gen, the graphics are very shiny, it looks very photorealistic, you can see the details on Alan Wake, and, you know, I'm sure he's even got a fully rendered bullsack down there, but that doesn't really matter, okay? What matters is the art style, and the art style luckily is good. It's not all just shiny graphics. The details matter, the kind of particle effects, the reflections, and the neon lighting. That's what makes this game interesting, and the weird abstract, you know, craziness is what makes this game interesting to play, because, you know, you never know what you're going to experience because the game is constantly changing around you. But at its core, it's a third-person shooter, okay, and a detective puzzle game. So you do need to remember what this game is. At the end of the day, it is a third-person shooter and a detective puzzle game. But what is fleshed out here is the detective puzzle side of things, not so much for shooting. Yes, it's still got that attention to detail that we all come to expect from Remedy games. The sound design is top-notch. You know, when you shoot a gun, it feels weighty, it feels very impactful. So, you know, the sound design is top-notch, but attention to detail is top-notch, but they're not experimenting much with the gameplay like they did with Control, which is a lesser-known game of theirs, and it's a shame because that game is a complete hidden gem. If you ask me, it didn't get the attention it deserved. They really expanded with, you know, player abilities and mind control powers, you know, unique stuff that we don't get to see in a lot of video games because they're actually experimenting with what abilities you have. Here, it's very by the books, third person, over the shoulder shooting. It's got that glue camera like The Last of Us has when it comes to melee combat, where you just kind of automatically lock on and glue yourself to a target, which I find pretty boring, and it doesn't really, you know, have much skill involved. Yes, there is resource management. You do actually have to care about how many bullets you have. You have to think about your situations. You have to think about when you're using your light to, you know, take off the enemy shield, because that's how it works. You shine a light on an enemy and it basically breaks their stance and then they stagger. So you have to time that correctly, and that does, you know, give some opportunities to tactical gameplay, which I do like. So basically what you will be doing in this game is you will be choosing between Alan Wake missions and Saga missions basically, and you can actually play these missions in whatever order you want, which adds to replayability, and again that adds to player agency, so you don't have to swap between these characters as the game tells you to. You can choose, who you want to play at what time, so it depends on the order you play these missions and how that changes the game. And of course the levels will actually change, which I'm going to talk about more. Another great positive here is the fact, and with my notes, it's all pretty much positive points here, there's only a few negatives, so this game is very high up there. But another positive is just the atmosphere. They've absolutely nailed the atmosphere, and that's very important, and I think that's what really made Alan Wake stand out. The first game was the atmosphere. You're walking on eggshells, okay, because you never know what's around the corner. Yes, the enemies are a little bit samey, there are some surprises, but I'm only talking about the early gameplay, that's what this review is based on. I do love the fact that basically the writing changes over time, so the more you interact with NPCs, that's how you get clues in this game, is by interacting with NPCs, by finding things in the environment, and then going into your mind space, okay? And this is basically an interactive menu. Unlike Bethesda, they know how to make an interactive menu, and it's very unique because you're going into this little kind of safe space, little 2023 safe space. I'm sure people will appreciate that, especially the younger audience, the Gen Z audience. They will definitely appreciate a safe space in modern day gaming. Sadly, there is no radical mode that you can toggle on and off, which is a little bit disappointing. But anyway, you go into your little safe space, and here you map out the clues by interacting with, different NPCs and the environment, clues that you pick up. And I love how your character goes through their thoughts and ideas, and basically as you update the clues, then you will actually get new, dialogue. Basically, your conclusions will update over time as you gather more evidence, which is a very cool mechanic, and you can actually just, kind of fumble your way through it and not have all of the pieces together but still make a conclusion, and to me that's what's super interesting. I do love the writing here. It does feel very noir and mature, which I really like. It's also got a lot of dark humor, which I really appreciate, and there's lots of little stuff that you will just see in the environment, and again, it's got that interactive ability like Control did, where you're watching a TV and it's actually playing some kind of commercial with real life actors, and it just makes it feel very grounded and disjointed, and it makes you question even more the reality that you are in and what it even means. It is very easy to get lost because there's, little things that you might miss, and instead of organically letting you progress, it actually holds you back, and you will actually have to backtrack to find the thing that you missed, which is annoying. I would have liked if it was a little bit more open in, in the way that you play and the conclusions that you come to. Sometimes it does work, but sometimes you just can't progress until you find exactly what you need, which is very annoying. And also at times I do feel like it's a little bit hand-holdy. I said it wasn't hand-holdy, but there is a small mechanic in here which is a very annoying thing in modern day gaming. I think they should take lessons from Jedi Survivor, where you can choose the option if you want to hear it or not. But basically your character talks to themselves and they basically tell you what you need to be doing, which is a little bit annoying. But I really like how you do interact with NPCs and gather clues, because sometimes the information that they give you might be false, and then you really have to think about your detective reasoning and skills. And I love the different change of pace between the detective gameplay and then the Alan gameplay, where you're basically, it's the same idea, but with Alan you're actually creating the plot of the story. So instead of finding clues and solving mysteries, you are actually changing the level layout itself, and it really makes you feel, and it really ties into the theme of being a writer and creating your own reality. I really love that. The Alan gameplay is just the best, I think, because that's such a cool, unique feature, and it does borrow a slight element from similar games that just came out, like Lords of the Fallen, where it's kind of got two worlds on top of each other, and that's a super cool mechanic. But I wish you could do that at any point, but it is only in certain locations and stuff like that. But still, it's a very cool mechanic, and it does add to the level variation because it's always changing. Writing actually changes the level design. Stuff like that actually interacts with the level design, to me, is what makes a game super interesting. And that's where the core feature is. It's with its storytelling, it's with the atmosphere, it's with not knowing what's going on, and kind of figuring out the mystery. The combat side of things are just the standard affair, but everything else here is very well done, especially the writing. It is a very cinematic story game, which some people might not like. If you only like really gameplay focused games, maybe you will not like this, but everything else is so interesting here, and it's so detailed that I'm sure a lot of people will enjoy Alan Wake, especially die-hard fans of Remedy and of the old Alan Wake game. So this brings me on to my final positive of the Alan Wake 2 review, this Alan Wake 2 game review. And by the way, I do hope you enjoyed this and that you do subscribe. It would mean a lot. And if you did enjoy this, consider checking out my music on Spotify. I will leave a link down below. If you like electronic cyberpunk music, I would appreciate it a lot because, yeah, I'm really passionate about my music and I'm sure you will like it if you like that type of music. But my final positive, and this is a big one, because a lot of people might be thinking, this is a horror game with some combat and survival horror, maybe something a little bit like Resident Evil, but it's not really like that. Yes, there is management of your resources, the inventory space is also very tiny and you have to think about what you carry and stuff like that, but it's not like Resident Evil in the sense that it's a very combat focused game or like an action game. This is very much a detective puzzle solver. So what's really important here, and this is what they nailed, because the combat is just passable and it's fun, but what they really nailed is how the puzzles actually play out, because in so many AAA games, the puzzles are so dumb, okay, and they are literally for toddlers. The character basically spells them out. It's so obvious what you need to do, things are highlighted, all that kind of BS. But with Alan Wake 2, the puzzles are actually in the environment, and you actually have to study what's around you, like you would in any real situation. So you really have to actually look at the clues and figure it out yourself. Some of them are very cleverly done, which I won't spoil, but to me that is a sign of a good detective game where it really truly makes you feel like you are hunting down a case. Or with Alan Wake and his section is basically where you're coming to a realization that, okay, this is how I change the level design to proceed the gameplay and stuff like that. That is super cool. So that is my Alan Wake 2 review. It's going to be a great game, I think, and a lot of people will be happy, but it is very different from the first game. It's, similar in many ways, but I feel like they double down on the puzzle solving, the storytelling. I just feel like they nailed the tone with Alan Wake 2 more so than they did with the first one. So fans of the game will be very happy, but don't expect anything groundbreaking. A lot of people are maybe expecting this to be like the best AAA game of this year, and I'm not sure about that because we've had so many good games. But let me know what you think down below in the comments, and I'll see you in the next video. Peace out.